I want you to get the best help possible. And so here are 5 things your therapist needs to know when you're healing the fearful avoidant attachment style. I am Pauline, and I am so happy you are here, because if you're watching this video, you're either probably in therapy or you're thinking about going into therapy. And I love that. I mean, therapists, I have so much respect for therapists and coaches and just anybody trained to really help you one-on-one. Um, and I'm all for that. That relationship is really, really valuable. And I have also heard so many stories of therapists that were very well intended, but just didn't understand the fearful avoidant attachment style, which is so logical because it's very complex and it's full of paradoxes and very counterintuitive things in order to heal it. So I wanted to make this video just to help you and your therapist to understand a little bit more about the fearful avoidant attachment style, which can really, really accelerate your healing. If your therapist is open to learning more in order to help you more, that is a very green flag. That already is a very, very good sign. And I just want to be able to give you everything you need for that. So there are 5 things I think that are very important to know that are not usually assumed by therapists and coaches. And the first one is that feeling safe is the absolute biggest and probably only driver. So there is still an assumption, and everything I'm sharing today is based on actual stories I've heard from people going through my programs that have had therapists. And I know there's such a wide variety in therapists. They are people also. They are very well trained, but they are also just people, and everybody is different. So I completely understand that some have certain assumptions, others have other assumptions. You bring your own experience, you bring your own lens, and we're trained different also, right? We haven't all done the same training. So therapists can very much differ. But what I see a lot is that it is assumed that when you go to therapy, you want to feel good, that is the goal, that is the target, that you want to feel happy, that you want to feel calm, that you want to feel, and that is a big driver. And for fearful avoidance, it's not. Feeling safe is the biggest and only driver, and that can look very different than what a therapist might expect. So feeling safe can actually look like isolation. Feeling safe can look like push and pull, like highs and lows, like build and destroy. That can make a fearful avoidant feel safe. And so when that is the biggest driver and you in therapy are trying to get out of that, you need to make sure that you understand, that your therapists understand, that you're essentially kind of shaking the foundation of what your protection mechanism is built on. And when you don't replace that with something else, it is going to be very hard to release those patterns, to change those patterns. Feeling safe is the biggest driver, but when you haven't healed yet, feeling safe looks very different than the assumption that we have, that feeling safe means feeling safe in your body, and the calmness, the relaxation. For a fearful avoidant, that is already triggering, feeling calm and relaxed. And I still see a lot of therapists that assume that people want to feel calm and relaxed, that aren't completely aware that feeling calm and relaxed can be an enormous trigger. Because to your fear brain, which kind of reigns in when you're a fearful avoidant. Feeling calm and relaxed means I'm not paying attention anymore. I'm not on anymore. I can't see bad things coming. And so when you have a therapist that very well intended tries to get you into a calm and relaxed state, that can be triggering to you. And so your therapists need to know that. So that is the first thing. The second thing is, and this is probably, this can be hard for a therapist, but don't assume, they shouldn't assume that you can build a trusting relationship. And don't assume that you'll want to feel good, be happy, or relax. I already kind of addressed that. But what I see is a lot of therapists still believe that if they are just calm and loving and unconditional, that the fearful avoidant that they are trying to help will be able to build a trusting relationship. But chances are that that might not happen. And so what you kind of then have is that the basis on which a lot of therapy models are built is that trusting relationship between the therapist and the one that is in therapy. And when a fearful avoidant is expected, even unconsciously, subconsciously, to create a trusting relationship with the therapist, they can feel that as pressure. And then when it doesn't work, they can kind of finish therapy seeming like they are paying attention and everything is going well because, you are very good at that. And the therapist might think, oh, everything is going swimmingly, but the fearful avoidant just never really got to that point where they could actually trust you. It can take years to really build a deeply trusting relationship with somebody that is also in, it's not a normal relationship, right? The therapist and the one that is in therapy. And that makes sense, and that is also a good thing. And there's probably your therapist has been trained in that. There's a lot of attention to that, which is good. But there's still some assumption that either the one in therapy wants to build a trusting relationship or is able to build a trusting relationship. And for many fearful avoidants, that is just way too scary. And especially in the situation where your therapist, in a way, he or she is not completely equal to you. And again, that is also a good thing. It's designed like that. But that can also mean for your therapist that they will always underestimate the kind of the impact or the power they have, because that difference in authority can also already be triggering to the fearful avoidant, because the fearful avoidant attachment style is so rooted in interpersonal dynamics. And so the trauma is in the relationship. And a lot of therapy models are just built on the basis of that a therapeutic relationship, and you have protocols to kind of build that in the first few sessions. But when there's a lot of trauma, and therefore that relationship is the thing that is complicated, that becomes very complicated for therapists too. One very concrete example is that a lot of the exposure and response therapy is based on a trusting relationship. So you expose the one that is in therapy to something they're afraid of, and the idea, the premise is that because you have somebody with you that you trust and that you feel safe with, the threat that you perceived is going to feel less, and therefore you kind of heal, and therefore the fear, the anxiety, the OCD, because it's used with OCD a lot, will lessen. But with the fearful avoidant attachment style and the corresponding complex PTSD that usually happens, that trusting relationship is definitely not guaranteed, even when it's you've had a therapeutic relationship for a long time. And so um, your therapist really needs to know how deeply that is ingrained. The the distrust of other people, including the therapist. And so this can be hard for the therapist to really see, because I think a lot of therapists, again, are people, and they have been trained probably very well. But they also feel like when they follow the protocols and when they are being a good person and giving unconditional love, then it will work, and then you will trust them. And it's not that you don't want to, but it's just that that trauma is just so deeply ingrained. And so I've heard so many stories that kind of show that therapists too quickly assumed that there was a trusting relationship and weren't really aware that you, as a fearful avoidant, are very well at making it seem like you trust them and that you feel safe, even though that might not be the case. And you might not even really be aware of that too. And the third thing, so what to finish that, is your therapist also needs to know ways to have the therapy work when there isn't that trusting relationship. Then the third one, an important one, is trauma informed is not enough. Your therapist also needs to be fear tractable. And what that means is in the fearful avoidant attachment style, you have a fear dominant brain. That means fear reigns. Everything is pretty much governed by fear and wanting to feel safe, but that doesn't look like, calm, relaxed, safe. It just means protection mechanisms. And in that fear dominant brain, your fear brain is the psychological system to that. It has its own logic. It's trying to protect you. And so what is needed is that your therapist is fear tractable, which means that they know how to work with fear. They know how the fear brain works. They know what the logic of the fear brain is, and can take it by the hand, not work against it. That's what fear tractable means. They are very well aware of how fear works, and that goes well beyond just knowing about trauma and knowing about the nervous system, which is amazing that a lot of therapists now know that it was very much needed, that was, a wave that came. But now we also need to know how the fear brain works and be fear tractable. Therapists need to be fear tractable. So being able to take fear by the hand and not work against fear, to not trigger the protective mechanisms. So that is a whole different thing. I will talk about that more. It is such an important concept, but too much to explain now. But that is the basis of it. You need to know how fear works and need to be able to take it by the hand. Then the fourth one, so important also, is have a tool or modality to release trauma and triggers from the body. And this is something that was very, very apparent in the beginning when I started doing this 8 years ago. That talk therapy works to a certain extent. It seems to work better than it actually does, because you, as a fearful avoidant, love figuring out how you work, how it works, the patterns, the mechanisms. You're smart. Your brain just sees patterns and loves information, loves overview, loves analyzing, loves intellectualizing, which is amazing and can really help you. But it also kind of keeps you away from the body sometimes, which is why you tend to analyze and intellectualize. And out of all the attachment styles, the fearful avoidant attachment style is the most physical and the most visceral. There are so many associations around just pretty much everything that are stored in the body. So you act out of a reflex. Somebody comes too close, you act out of a reflex and push them away. Somebody triggers you, you feel dumb or incapable, for instance, which is a trigger for the fearful avoidant attachment style, and you just get angry. There's a lot of emotional volatility that is core to the fearful avoidant attachment style, way more than with the other attachment styles. And so when you're in therapy and there is no modality to release trauma from the body, to release associations from the body, to release emotional charge from the body, you risk being able to really understand a lot and be able to recognize it, but not be able to respond in a different way because your responses are so visceral. It's not, you cannot, your therapist cannot expect that you will be able to be aware and then in the moment choose differently. That can work in with other attachment styles, that can work with certain people, but not when you're healing the fearful avoidant attachment style or you're struggling with the fearful avoidant attachment style, because the triggers are so overwhelming. You will not be able to do this on willpower. It's not designed that way. You don't have to do it that way. There are other ways. But for that, you need a modality to release emotional charge from the body. There are multiple ones. EMDR is one that a lot of therapists are trained in, which is an amazing one. EFT, the emotional freedom technique, I use pretty much all the time because it just perfectly fits the fearful avoidant attachment style and what it needs. There are somatic practices. I mean, there's a lot now, more than when I started eight years ago. And so I don't hear this too often anymore, that this is missing from therapy, but it still is a lot. There is still a lot of therapists that focus too much on the analyzing and the digging and the understanding and the when I understand the patterns, then I will be able to act differently. And for a fearful avoidant, that is just really, really hard, which then causes you to feel like you're failing and you're broken and you can't do this. And I don't want you to feel that way. So that is why this is very important for your therapist to understand. And then the fifth one is, it is very important for your therapist to understand the core wounds, because some of them are not very logical and they can be triggered inadvertently without them knowing, without them wanting to, with them being very well intentioned. For instance, a trigger being dumb and incapable, that is not something that a lot of therapists are aware of. Maybe some are, and that's amazing, but a lot of the core wounds are not easily recognized by therapists that are more generally trained, even general in the attachment styles. I mean, the fearful avoidant attachment style is just such a different beast. And with beast, I'm not saying it's impossible to heal, absolutely not, but it requires something really different from the other attachment styles. So, knowing the core wounds is very important to know why also in therapy, you might react the way you do. So I have made a guide, the fast track guide to healing the fearful avoidant attachment style, which might sound superficial, like let's heal faster, but this is just based on years of experience in helping over 3,000 fearful avoidants heal. So it's based on something. And that it contains a lot of important information, a lot of what I say here, but also the core wounds. So even just for that, you can download that. You can find the link probably in the description, and either give it to your therapist, send it to your therapist. You can absolutely have them watch this video if they're open to that. That's amazing. That's really good. But that guide will already bring you a lot of valuable information and insight into specifically the fearful avoidant attachment style. And so that will help you in therapy, and it can really help shave off maybe months of work by just, your therapist knowing what to look for, what to work on. And that's all I want for you. Just want to help you. If you have any questions about this, please let me know in the comments. We will try to respond to every single one. because I just want to be here for you and make sure you get the best help possible. All right. I am so happy you are here, you're watching this, and I will see you in the next one.